Hello, everybody, and welcome back to That Milan Podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, and a very special returning guest today, Sean McIntosh. Before we introduce our guest and get into the podcast today, we'd just like to thank everybody for supporting us. Like, subscribe to the channel here on YouTube, and give us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. We appreciate all the support as we have been growing exponentially as we head into the final month of 2025, which is crazy to say. It was already December 1st. I know, Sean, you don't really feel it as much out there in Vegas. You are the CEO of the Vegas Lights. I think last time we had you on, you were back in Charlotte. Obviously, we've had you on for Lazio content. We've been guests on each other's relative. I don't know why that disappeared. I was only here for 10 seconds. New feature. But again, yes, had Lazio World content. You and Caleb do a great job of that. So many different Lazio content creators out there. But how are you doing, and how's everything been out in Sin City?
It's good, man. It's been a whirlwind. Just wrapped up first full season, and it was a dream job. I loved my time in Charlotte and what we built at Charlotte FC, and still holds a special place in my heart. But the opportunity to run a professional football club was something I dream of as a fan of this game. So getting the opportunity to do it in a city like Las Vegas that I was familiar with, I'd spent time in. The weather is certainly can't beat. So it's been really good.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the guys that is, well, he's no longer there, was our good guy Antonio Nocerino that you and I discussed a little bit, and you were giving me some funny stories that we won't.
Man, he came with the stories.
Yeah, you did tell me that. So
he was awesome. Had incredible stories. To hear his insights about the Milan locker room and the legends that he worked with and played with was awesome. We had it's such an interesting special, is called it Serie A West Coast, because between myself, my sporting director is a Juventino, and he was actually the assistant sporting director at Venezia. It was a big part of helping them get promoted to Serie A a couple seasons ago. So between him, we had a couple other staffers that were Serie A fans. We had 2 Interisti. Our assistant coach was from Napoli, and so we had a really fun group. We'd always have Serie A games on, and then the banter was always pretty heavy.
Yeah, that's great. And Mr. Santangelo is also here. Matt, another victory for Milan in the 1-0 fashion.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this with Nick in the build-up. Diani, shout out to Nick for joining us and giving us his perspective on all things Lazio. But yeah, it's it was one of those games where I highlighted the fact that amidst all the things off the pitch when it comes to the market with Lazio and the uncertainty there, this is a team that came into this game with a pretty steady defensive record, and I think you kind of saw that through better parts of the game this past weekend. That it's like this, as a Lazio fan, obviously Sean can attest to it more than we can, right? But it's like disheartening to see, because there are components of this Lazio team that do give you that confidence, that do give you life, that give you like that kind of hope that if there is some investment, there is some substantial capital put into this team, that this team can be competing in that top 4 conversation. But this is a team that gave Milan a real go and looked like they were potentially going to maybe steal a point. Obviously, we'll get into what happened in the 90 minutes.
Yeah, so not overly shocking considering how you guys have been playing this year, Sean. Very compact. I think that this is like Sarri at his best. I think he's been troubled, right? Because we know the whole situation over the summer. We discussed this with Nick of like, I didn't know we were going to have no money this summer, and basically having to deal with zero. Like Tati is a striker, but I don't think anyone here would really call him a true 9. Maybe a second striker playing off of someone. It's also forced to put Buoladia in a difficult spot too. I don't think he's really in the best position for him to succeed. I think he's better off probably wide on the right side, or at least a 10. But playing up top is, I think it's a disservice to him. But what is Sardi supposed to do in that situation? You guys have been very compact. I've always been a big fan of your midfield. I think there's been plenty of talent there, and even making do without Rovella, who was really strong last season. It's been difficult for you guys. But again, getting pretty decent results. This one was always going to be tough at San Siro. It's one of the more difficult places that you guys have historically struggled at. So what was your kind of thoughts with this? A great chance by Mario Gila to start this one off, and Magnan just made a terrific save. How did you think Lazio approached this? I was very impressed by it. I thought it was a very strong mental performance.
Yeah, I think a couple things. Look, the way that Sarri has this Lazio side playing, they're very difficult to beat. We may not come into a match and be the most technical. We may not strike fear in opponents. We're not going to put up 3 or 4 goals, but we're really tough to beat. And I think he has worked absolute wonders with the group of players that he has. You think about players like Toma Basic, who was outside of the squad, hadn't played in almost 2 years. You've got a player like Rovella, who is out. Not only Rovella, but now Cataldi, his replacement, out. So we're making do with Vecino, who had been injured, who is just now playing. This is his first start in a year and a half, 2 years. And so, he's doing this without his starting striker. He's doing this without Cancellieri, who was his starting right winger going into the season. And so to be able to go into San Siro and make it really, really difficult and to put us in a position to feel like we were at least deserving of a draw, to like it was a very even game for us, absolute miracles by Sarri. So I think going into this one, we very much feel like we at least have a chance going into every game. And it's what he's done defensively. The last time in the first go around under Sarri, when he got us to second in the table, we were the best defensive team in the league. And this is, again, very much what his identity is. You think about Sarri ball, and those that think Sarri ball is thinking a lot more fluid in attack. But when I think about it, at least during his time at Lazio, it's being really compact, really smart. You saw it in the way that we got out of dangerous situations, playing out of the back, maintaining possession. And, I think for us, if we're going to be frustrated about anything with Sarri, it's his reliance and refusal to swap out Buladia. I mean, Buladia has been, unfortunately, you said it, he's very much, it's a confidence thing at this point, maybe playing out of his comfort zone. It's affected every other phase of his game, but he's turned into a player that you can't count on for hold-up play. You can't count on to connect passes. You can't count on him to be any sort of threat in and around the box. And that's really hampered a side that is already struggling to attack. If not for Zaccagni, there's no other player on this Lazio side that's putting any sort of a threat. And it's easy to defend. All you guys have to do is shift your attention to Zaccagni, and there's only so much that he can do. So really, really frustrating to not see somebody like Tijani Naslin at least get a chance, because every time he's come in for Lazio under Sarri this season, he's at least created or scored. We're just not seeing that from Dia. So it felt like we went into this match down a man.
Matt, like Sean was saying, the only one offensively that was really threatening or impressed me greatly in this one was Zaccagni. I thought he was really strong in that first half. And yeah, I mean, listen, what can you do when you don't really have many threats? You saw how distressed he was after sending in some of the crosses. I think Tomori had a really bad flick in the box too when he sent in one of those crosses. Zaccagni was really kind of the only one that made me worry, besides of stoppage time at the end of the game.
Yeah, he is a player that obviously Milan have had trouble with over the years, and a player that has represented the Italian national team. He's a player that in those 1v1 situations, he's got a little bit of not a temper, not like a hothead, but that sort of fiery grinta way about him, where he's fearless. He'll go into those battles, he'll take guys on, and there were some good encounters in this game. But yeah, at some point, like we as Milan fans have seen over the years, when you kind of know how to play Milan and know how predictable they're going to be when they're going forward. I'm looking at Rafael Leao, okay, we can blanket him with 2 guys, 3 guys. If someone else beats us, by all means, but we're not letting this guy beat us. Yeah. And I think that, unfortunately, for Sarri, as Sean just alluded to, we're so used to seeing this high octane offensive football, dating back to his Napoli teams that were so, fluid, aesthetically pleasing to watch, but he just doesn't have the manpower here. I think that's just kind of the reality of the situation. So it's almost forced him and shoehorned him into being a team that has a bit of a more defensive identity. And credit to him, right? Because I think the biggest criticism of Sarri over the years has been, we have 4-3-3, he can only play a certain way. He has to have all his individual players from a personnel standpoint. It takes more time to get going, and he's been forced to basically say, hey, this is the players you're going to have at your disposal, make it work. And I think if you look at the standings and you think, okay, fine, a team like Lazio should be in the conversation more up the table, but I think given the circumstances, given the context, which in this case does matter regarding their market, you look at Lazio and you think, okay, I think based on results, based on what we've seen and the lack of resources, this is kind of where they should be. But I think, again, the fact that they are competing in a game like this against Milan, who is leading at the top of the table, a team that, has Scudetto ambitions, the fact that they're competing and bringing the game to the final 90-minute and potentially almost getting a point out of this, I think just goes to show you that Sarri really is doing a lot with very minimal at his disposal.
Yeah, and it wasn't only a blocked transfer market. You talk about a transfer market at the most critical time. We go from a team designed to play under Baroni to a very different side with Sarri. And to your point, now Sarri has to just figure this out with a group of players that doesn't necessarily match. The key moment that I really think about and the difference between a Milan side and a Lazio side here is that technical quality that's missing. I think about great piece of content here is you take in the 13th minute, Zaccagni and Toma Basic had a fantastic little 1-2, and Zaccagni plays a wonderful ball across goal. Nobody on Lazio's side is making the run in the box. Nobody has that intuition, desire, understanding, versus when you guys scored your goal, fantastic little 1-2, ball comes across. Who is on the end of it? A world-class technical player that knows what to do and where to be, and that's the difference in the game.
Yeah, and that was exactly the play that I was alluding to earlier, where Zaccagni was, because it's because we see it all the time with Leao when Milan don't have a striker on the pitch, where he's sending back a cutback ball. I think even Fofana blocked one of them in this one because Salamakers hit it. I found it was pure comedy from Fofana in this one. We didn't even get into the 80-yard run that was a whiff. But yeah, I agree with you. It's just really difficult for Lazio. I know there's been rumors of Guendouzi leaving in January, which I highly doubt to begin with. I think the one thing that's pretty good on your side is the fact that you play not that many matches, even though it's ironic that we're doing a double dip this week with the two teams facing one another. But yeah, I think this was pretty even throughout. And then let's just get into it, guys, because it was a controversial ending here with this. There was one that I forget. It was definitely in stoppage time last year when Pedro scored the penalty for Lazio when Pavlovic committed that one on Isaacson, I think it was. Yeah. And then Pedro ended up scoring. We saw him get subbed on late. I tweeted about it. I was very terrified. And then, we got into this sort of play. So we'll set the scene here, right? Because we were discussing it prior to the podcast starting. I think we're all on the same page here that it should have just been a corner kick. Should have been nothing else outside of that. Giving a handball, and I know the argument for people saying handball is because of the incident with Lazio and Inter last season with Bisek and the sort of consistency that every Serie A fan is asking for. If you're calling that a penalty on one occasion, you have to call it a penalty on every occasion. Even though I don't think that should have been a penalty last year, I don't think this one should have been a penalty either, because we have to come to a common ground here on what is really at fault with a player here. Marusic and Pavlovic are both fighting. There should never be a foul with that. We see that constantly throughout this sport. Anytime you see a corner kick, there's always hand fighting for positioning. Is Pavlovic supposed to be not touching Marusic or vice versa? No, that it's ridiculous. And the idea of Pavlovic's arm is in an unnatural position, the argument for it not being unnatural is the fact that it was naturally fighting for position. You're supposed to be moving your arms around. Are both players supposed to have their arms behind their back in this situation? No. So I think it was ridiculous. His back was turned to Romagnoli to begin with. I just found all of that to be nonsense. The call on the field was a corner kick, and then the VAR referee, who was ultimately suspended for this after the fact, had said, you have to go and look at this. And then this is where all hell broke loose, all confusion for everybody involved. We saw Fikayo Tomori's face everywhere because it was very hilarious. They were saying there was a foul on Marusic, and I believe the initial ruling was that there was a penalty, but since there was a foul on Marusic, that it was negated, and there was a goal kick for Milan. Absolutely bizarre. I don't make sense of it. I don't think anyone did, and that's why the VAR ref was suspended. Sean, we'll let you go into it first from the Lazio perspective. Give your point of view here of what you were thinking and going through, because I know you said you don't think that should have been a penalty.
Yeah, look, when I saw it in live time, I even tweeted. I said, "There's no, as much as I wanted to be, there's no way it can be a penalty. Like, would have been extremely harsh." Now, I will say it was a lot more of a question once I saw the replays. So I do think it should have went to VAR. I think that's what you have VAR for in a situation late in a match, game deciding, questionable. I think VAR did its job in sending the ref, hey, go take a look at this, right? I think that's what we all want as fans. If you're going to have VAR, use it. And so on second replay, look, I think I would have been fine. Of course, I would have been upset as a Lazio fan, but would have understood, look, it's not a penalty, didn't see it. You can give me 100 reasons, all of which you laid out. I also would have understood if they had given it, because precedent has been set. They have given it before. You can make an argument. He is making his body bigger. It is a shot on goal. Like, the ball is going to goal, if not for. So, like, I could understand that. Yeah. But if it's not given, pretty normal not to give it. It's the circus show that happens afterwards, right? Like, you now confirm that it's a penalty, that it is a handball, and you go back on that because of a foul on Marusic, which you said it, like, it's two guys, natural body for position, never a foul, which makes it more disheartening as a Lazio fan, because you're saying very much so, it's a handball, great, and now we're on some BS that you're telling me that it's a foul. So not only do we not get the penalty, we don't even get the corner. Yeah. And so really, really disheartening. It's so Serie A, like, love the league. It's also why it is the most entertaining league in the world, for all the good and the bad, but
unbelievable
circus show. Yeah. Incredible, right? Like, this is the most entertaining league in the world, but absolute circus show there. I think I'm a little bit, I said this before we jumped on, like, a little bit concerned as to the VAR ref being suspended, because what I don't want to happen is for anybody in the future to feel like they're not going to now go to VAR for controversial decisions, when I would rather a ref be called to take a second look. So I thought it was deserving of a second look. Ultimately, the head referee just made it all shambolic.
Yeah, and so I'll just read this report real quick, and then, Matt, you could jump in here. So according to the Association of Italian Referees, the video assistant referee of Milan-Lazio, Di Paolo, should have not called the match officials Giuseppe Collu for an on-field review, as there was no penalty on Pavlovic. So the league itself is saying that there was no penalty at all to begin with here, and that it should have never been reviewed, and thus ending in a suspension, which feels harsh.
Again, you're not supposed, like, whether or not it was a handball or not, you're punishing VAR for telling him to go. If it's not a handball, that's fine. The head referee will simply make the call that it wasn't a handball. So it's truly, again, this is like Serie A at its finest. Like, you're suspending the wrong guy. Like, we're suspending VAR for calling the head referee to take a look at it. And I think, again, we all agree, like, take a look at it. It's fine. Yeah. Just make the right call. Yeah. So it's really head scratching as to why VAR is.
And not to cut you off, Matt, to back up your point, Sean, like, we have many other instances, even Milan this year, where VAR told them to go and check something, and they came back and the referee disagreed with VAR. You can't just suspend every time there is a disagreement. To your point, it's like, you're supposed to be using this technology to your advantage. If you think that, hey, maybe the referee on the pitch might have missed something, that's the entire point of this thing. And we can't be penalizing for telling them to maybe look at it, because it's up to the referee on the field's discretion to change the call on the field. So it's just, it's silly. I agree with you 100%. And unfortunately, Matt, with our beloved league and our fans, they can't help but think that this is now a scandal, that there is somebody pulling the strings above everywhere, like Jerry Cardinale is watching all these games. Like, please. So what was your kind of perspective on this? Because I was just waiting. I was like, bro, just blow the whistle. Like, I don't want to do this anymore in the 95th minute.
like everybody else, it was just confusion. And I'm watching the game thinking, okay, 1 minute passed, 2 minute passed, and then it's like, now, okay, now we're gonna go look, and I'm like, okay, here comes 3 to 4 more minutes, and I'm saying to myself, if it's gonna take you that long to make a decision about whether or not you want to reverse it, then it's not conclusive. Therefore, you don't make the switch.
Right.
So therefore, it should revert back to what the initial ruling on the pitch was, which again, to Sean's point, which you guys mentioned, was the corner. So if nothing else, they should have gotten a corner. I didn't see a penalty in there, but I didn't see a foul on Marusic at all to make it seem as though that, like, okay, fine, we should negate that and not have that even be an opportunity for Lazio. Which again, like, it was like a good chess match of a football match, and for it to kind of come down to something like that, and that be like the key takeaway and talking point where everyone's now like, see, look at Serie A, it's not a serious league, they have VAR, but they don't know how to use it. And I always have been saying this since the implementation of VAR, not just in Serie A, but in leagues across Europe and
Right.
wider football, is it's not the technology, it's how it's being used. And that's been the biggest frustration for me as a football fan, is because I think that you have this opportunity to have that third set of eyes to say, hey, look at this, maybe there is something there. And if there isn't anything there, at least you can say with clear conscience, we looked at it. We gave it every possible angle. Things happen very quickly on a football match, on a football pitch. So you're not gonna be able to see everything. But the fact that, you go through this, it looks like a whole charade, only for it to be, oh yeah, it's not a penalty, it's a foul, and now it's a goal kick. It just kind of takes and sucks the life out of football in those pressurized moments where, a game like this, if let's say now Lazio do get a corner, they have momentum, they're pressing, they're forward, they're bringing guys forward. Maybe things change. Maybe they do steal a goal in this, and the conversation's different. We don't really know. But when you take the air and suck the air out of the game by stopping it for 5-6 minutes, and then it's like the pause where I saw Gabbia, and he's like celebrating as if they just won a title over a non-penalty call. It's like, I don't know. The football side in me is like, really? This is kind of what we're getting to? So, yeah, that was the frustrating side for me. Obviously, people are going to say, well, we won. Milan have been on the losing side of these non-penalty calls. It happens to everybody. I think as fans, we're all here. We're pretty reasonable. What we want from VAR is the correct calls. Milan have had it against them plenty of times. Lazio, in this situation, you can make a case. Maybe they had it against them because if nothing else, they should have got a corner. Yeah. So we just want consistency. And when you open VAR and you open officiating to interpretation, like we've seen over the recent years with VAR, now it makes it very confusing. That, well, what really is a handball? Hey, this occurred in this game over here. They got a handball call. So why isn't this a handball call? So it's like, now people, if you're a fan of the game, you're watching it thinking like, yeah, I don't know what a penalty is. I don't know what a handball is. I don't know what VAR is really looking at that's ultimately going to make those judgment calls. So that's kind of how I left feeling about this entire thing.
Yeah. Just a sour note once again with Serie A. But just kind of quick thoughts on everybody's. I just want everybody's kind of thoughts here with this, because I think the ref cam, not just the ref cam, sorry, the referee announcing the VAR decision. I mean, we're all used to it as NFL fans. Like I literally can't remember
Baseball
the NFL without it.
Has that as well.
Right? Oh, baseball's implemented it recently, but this is cinema. I know, we're leaving our sentiments out of this. Is incredible.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I mean, look, again, just gut wrenching, but the content and the entertainment value is like he's announcing that it's a handball. And so Lazio, right? We're like, let's go only to like ... but it's a foul. And then it's the roles are reversed, right? Then Milan's going nuts. And it's like, it is absolute cinema for sure.
Yeah. Just all those ref cams. I don't know which one to pick. I think at the end of the day, Allegri getting the red card wins it for me. There's just nothing better than seeing,
like the blank stare in his face where he's like.
But Tomori just in the background also makes it ridiculous. And then I don't know who the assistant was for Lazio that when I go touch Allegri, they had like some little bump at the end of it. It was just so stupid. It was just, but these are how these men are. They're incredibly dramatic people. So I just love that side of it. The ref cam, and also, like, listen, I'm pretty harsh when it comes to the broadcasting side of things in Serie A, whether it's audio or just, I know the stadiums, they work against them sometimes. I think we all kind of know that.
Yeah.
But just the cutting to the ref cam in certain
Yeah.
moments, it really is great stuff. And I just had to say, like, I loved watching that. In whatever instances, you're really just right in their faces. When it was like Rabiot, Leao, and Tomori surrounding them. Just really great and funny stuff to kind of see. And you know what, guys? We get to do it all again on Thursday. So this one is being hosted in Rome because Milan were god awful in Serie A last year. So they do not have the right to play this one. Listen, we had Diani on last week, Sean, and his sentiments pretty much the same as mine when it comes to competitions. If you have the ability to win something, you have to go all in for it. How do you view Lazio in your situation as to how Sarri will approach this? Will this have more of the starters in this one? Will Castellanos start from the first minute? Do you see any other changes? I know we kind of talked about that's not really Sarri's MO, but it is difficult when you're playing in the situation that you're in, especially with finances. Having to get back into Europe is pretty dire. So how do you view Lazio heading into this one in terms of formation?
Yeah, look, I agree. I think anytime you're in a competition, like you want to win it, and like this is an important trophy. This is an important tournament, and for Lazio, it's the only realistic chance to walk away with hardware this year. So I think it is one that it's critical. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a ton of options. So Sarri usually averse to rotating a ton. I think you're going to see a combination of rotation, maybe not necessarily because he wants to, almost out of necessity. So I think you're going to see like Vecino, for example. He's just now getting back, getting healthy. I think he needs a run. You don't have really any other options with Cataldi and Rovella hurt. He's been really hesitant to give Belayan any more chances. So I think you're going to see Vecino. I think Vecino needs the run of games anyways. Mm-hmm. Similarly for Tati Castellanos, right? He's just getting back. He comes on late. I think this is an opportunity to start him, see how many minutes you can get out of him, get him back to his fitness. He is, I talked about how dire Dia was. I think the Lazio fans have always been up and down with Tati, and he couldn't be higher right now. And that's how bad Dia has been. We miss so much of what Tati does. He may not be your traditional fox in the box number 9, but he does so much well, such a well-rounded player. So I think getting him from the jump, I think you're going to see him starting in this one. And then again, not a ton of options. You're going to see Zaccagni because we don't really have another option. Where the questions are going to be is whether or not he starts with Pellegrini again, or if this is a bit of an olive branch and you see Nuno Tavares starting. I would, if I had to bet, I think you would see Nuno. I would like to see Nuno, if for anything, just to give a little bit more of dynamic play to help Zaccagni go into this one playing a little bit different. Maybe it catches Milan off guard because you're just going into it a little bit more attack-minded because Nuno is going to bring that on that left side that opens things up. So I think really that's the one question is whether or not Nuno is starting. I'd go pretty wash outside of that.
Even goalkeeper, you would say?
That's
because Nick had mentioned it's a little bit controversial amongst you.
It's a little bit controversial. I think that's going to be the big question, right? This year, you went into it. Mandas had won the job last year. Provedel really a shell of himself last season. Went into the offseason here under a true competition. Sarri gave both keepers equal playing time, and you just Provedel won it out, and Provedel has played really, really well this season. And so now you've got a situation where Mandas, who had a little bit of value, who's younger, who earned the job last year, is not getting any playing time. If not this match, then it's never going to happen. Right. He is somebody that's likely on the market. Now, in order for Lazio to bring anybody in, they have to sell. He is a player that'll come with a little bit of value. I do think that he'll be sold under value if you move him in the winter. But he's losing his value by not playing. So from a business standpoint, I'd like to see him start. Hopefully you get a good game right in time for the window and you ship him off, given how well Provedel's playing.
Yeah. All right. Well, Matt, there are potentially a couple changes for Milan in this one. Christian Pulisic back in training. Personally, I don't see him being used in this because we know, for Milan, the goal is the Scudetto. There's also the Super Coppa that they're going to have to be playing in a couple of weeks' time anyways against Napoli. So you need a fresh Christian Pulisic. I think Nkunku will get another run here. Santi Jimenez does not appear to be ready for this one. Either Torino or Sassuolo will be the time that he returns. As far as midfield goal goes, I don't see Modric starting in this one. It could be Ricci, could be Arden Yashadi getting his first start at Milan, or probably coming off as a substitute. He was getting some instructions recently in the games, but we obviously didn't see him feature in the derby or this match against Lazio. Stupanian potentially for Bartezaghi, because you never really know how a 19-year-old can handle all these games in a row like that. If you have an opportunity to let him rest, Stupanian should be capable in a match like this, but he's been very shaky since arriving in the league. Outside of that, there's no real options at the right wing-back position because Atakame is obviously out. Coney De Winter in for Tomori, potentially with your other center-back spot, but it possibly could be, much more of the same outside of that. So how do you anticipate Milan lining up for this?
Yeah, I think you have to still keep trotting out Nkunku because this is a player you spent near 40 million on this past summer. And, I didn't see enough in the game against Lazio for me to change my mind about the transfer. I know it would take more than just a singular performance, but this is a player that I've been adamant in saying that he doesn't, profile wise, doesn't fit what we need, for the money, for what we were looking for later in the market. The fact that we spent that much money on a player seemed more of a team that it was in need, that could use a luxury signing. Hey, actually, this player is very good. We have what we need. There's some money left. Let's see if we can get him on a low. So you play him in a match like this. Maybe you take advantage of the fact that, like Milan, Lazio are also going to have, some tired legs. They're going to have to get that quick bounce back and turn around to this game after the weekend. But yeah, I think Nkunku you'll see there. I think Ricci, even before when we had all the injuries to Rabiot and, the midfield was a little bit banged up, Ricci put in some pretty decent shifts. And when he's come off the bench, he's also produced quite well. So I think in a match like this, you're in a position where, maybe we start looking to preserving Modric a bit. He's been playing 90 minutes in pretty much every single match. Now you start mixing in the Coppa games. It's a quicker turnaround, unlike the, once a week format. So I think you'll see some minute changes here and there, but I don't think it's going to be a drastic fall off because I think that Allegri and his Milan, as we just mentioned, they understand the fact that there's a trophy to be won. And, Allegri, to his credit, has also put on a really good cup, resume, right? Even
very underrated,
even in his down years at Juventus, he still was able to win those domestic cups and to make his seasons look a little bit better than maybe they were, relative to what they had. So I think we'll see changes, but I don't think we'll see wholesale changes because they obviously have to respect the fact that Lazio is a team that just pushed them 90 minutes strong. And look, I think real quick on the Lazio side, I think Lazio are going to come into this game and they're going to have a little chip on their shoulder. I think they're going to be a little bit frustrated with the way things played out because the way I was watching that game, they were the better team in the first 45. And then for large parts of the second half, I actually thought they were, right there with Milan. So I think they're going to come into this game, see this as a possible pathway to a trophy. And, I think they're going to put in a really good performance themselves.
Just real quick, maybe either of you know this. Does this one go straight to penalties at the full 90? Or I don't know if they go to extras for this round. It feels like a straight to pens. I could try and look that up while we get some predictions in here, and then Sean will let you go, and then we'll do Sergio Ramos stuff because you're a very busy man, as we told everybody at the intro of this. We play each other almost all the time in Coppa Italia. I don't know how it happens, but it does. How do you see this one going? Do Lazio advance?
I'm going to be optimistic, and I think the biggest thing is that they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, and this is going to matter a little bit more to Lazio than it does to Milan. We're playing at home. I really, really hope that the home crowd shows up. It's a midweek match, which Lazio fans aren't great about. They do surprisingly a really good job of showing up for Serie A matches, but midweek's always been tough. So I think there is enough there. There's the hunger. I think they're going to play to win. One possible change I didn't mention that I wouldn't be surprised seeing is Profsgaard, center back that has been very, very strong in a lot of his appearances, and he's a young center back. It's been really surprising that Sarri has given him opportunities, but given some of the injury history with Romagnoli, with Gila, especially just the way Gila plays in particular, like he's always coming up at the end of matches, like cramping a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if he were to take this one off, but I do think Sarri is going to go with his strongest 11. And I would predict a 1-0 victory.
Okay. Yeah. 1-0 victory. Real quick, Matt, before your prediction, the one-off matches in Coppa Italia go straight to penalties after 90 minutes. So just factor that in if you want to, Matt.
Yeah, I think I feel like I'm going to get scolded in the comments one way or the other. If I go Lazio, everyone's going to say, well, this team hasn't given you enough to support them and to think that they can do this in the Coppa Italia. It's not that, but I also think like one less competition for Milan, like bigger picture scenario. Like not saying that they're going to punt on the competition. That's not what I'm saying. But you look at it and you're like, psychologically, are they going to be like, all eyes are on Scudetto? This is a Scudetto team, a team we're built for. And, do they kind of lean in that direction? I think Lazio are going to come out again with a chip on their shoulder. I think they're going to play a little bit more aggressively in this game. I think they're going to want to go and win for all the reasons that Sean just mentioned as well. I think it actually does go to penalties, and I actually do think that Lazio win.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I'll go against the grain then if no one's going to do that. I'm going to say this is going to go to penalties just because of the way both of these sides have been playing. There's not that much attacking prowess within either side, especially with the way Allegri plays. I wouldn't be shocked if, Leao does something that he's able to win a match. Like I had mentioned last episode, he just always seems to make a mark against the Roman-based team. I wouldn't be shocked if he does that here. But if it goes to penalties, we've seen that before. I think Mike Maignan is feeling really good about himself recently when penalties are happening. So I think Milan go through on penalties, but this will be another tough 90 minutes, and I do not expect the Olimpico to be anything short of chaotic in terms of atmosphere. I think they're really going to bring it. I think everyone is very upset after what happened, and we know us, fans over here in the States are a little bit different on how we approach things and see the matches. They are psychotic out there. So they do not think that this is going to be a quiet type of environment. I think the Olimpico will be rocking. So once again, Sean, we're going to let you head out here.
Can I ask both of you? I want to get your opinion on two Lazio players. Obviously, you guys are both keen on the Italian national team. So one former Milan player, Alessio Romagnoli. You kind of saw him play yesterday, plenty of games. It seems like we've always got you guys in Coppa Italia, always chaotic matches. But Romagnoli for us has been such a calming presence. His partner, it can be anything from Casale, who for one season looked to be a really strong center back, and then kind of crashes down to earth. We've got Gila, who is really, really good. I think this is the last year we're going to have Gila before he gets sold. But you name it, Patri, up and down. And Romagnoli is such at least from the Lazio standpoint, such a consistent class. Like you can go to bed at night knowing he's covered. So I want to get your thoughts on him, particularly when it comes to the Italian national team. And for me, I'm like, why is he not getting a look? When you got the likes of Mancini and so many questions, and then the other one is a player who is getting some opportunities, but Zaccagni, who I feel like is so maybe this is Lazio, right? Like we're not gonna have players that get the love, but you guys saw him yesterday, and this is just what Zaccagni brings to the table: match in, match out. He's fighting defensively, he's winning, slide tackling, winning balls.
The only reason Spalletti kept his job. The only reason why Spalletti stayed around was
Absolutely.
because of him.
And he didn't get to play, and then does that next match because El Shaarawy getting a start.
And I love him too. But yeah, I'll let Matt
Two non-Lazio fans. These two players who we think really highly of as Lazio fans, like what do you guys think of those two players, and should they have bigger roles with the Italian national team?
Matt, go ahead.
I mean, Romagnoli, we've obviously become very familiar with. He spent a large chunk of his career at Milan. He went through the turbulent years where he was a big signing from Roma in 2015 under Mihalovic. Rest in peace, Simica Mihalovic, legend of the game, the Serie A legend. And he, everyone always sort of kind of looked at him through the lens of, well, he could be very good, but he never really had that counterpart next to him that can really help elevate him. To your point, you mentioned all the names that have been kind of cycling through Lazio's backline over the years, but despite all those sorts of things and the uncertainty, like Romagnoli's always been the consummate professional, like a leader of men in the back, and really puts in pretty consistent performances. And I didn't expect anything less. When he went to Lazio, that's his boyhood club. You knew he was going to play with just a little bit more energy, a little bit more passion and desire, because you're representing everything that you've wanted in your football career. So I think at this point, as Italian national team fans, you can't rule out any players, especially in the defensive phase, because I think we're having the conversation of there's probably more or less 75 to 80% of the team set in stone. Yeah. And then there's the fringe players that can maybe play their way out of a job, and players that can play their way in. And I actually do think Romagnoli could be one of those guys, especially if Lazio maintain this defensive record. So that's obviously something to keep an eye on. And the same thing with Zaccagni. I think a player that maybe the numbers don't leap off the page, but I think if you look at what Italy has in these wide areas, there aren't a ton of players that provide a lot of certainties at this point. And what Zaccagni does provide is fitness, energy. He's going to press. He's going to do all those sorts of things off the ball. And with those moments, he can create chances for himself. So I think that these are two players for sure that Gattuso needs to be considering if they get into that conversation of a World Cup.
So for me, with Romagnoli, who I always defend, I always loved, I think he got a raw job because of the system that Milan were playing towards the end of his career. But everybody knows the best version of Romagnoli was under Gennaro Gattuso. Yeah. When we all know the statistic that only him and Virgil van Dijk were the two center backs in Europe that never got dribbled past in that one season. It's just always a fun fact. I think Romagnoli is a victim of being left-footed because there's only left-footed center backs for Italy except the guy at the other team in Rome, who whatever. And for me, I think that's kind of where he suffers because I think he's behind Calafiori, Buongiorno, and then Bastoni, obviously. The three center back system also doesn't help him out. But as far as reliability and talent at the center back spot, I think he's worthy of the national team call-up. I think it's just the squad. Now, as far as Zaccagni goes, I think it's the complete opposite. Gattuso is sitting there begging Federico Chiesa, who's barely getting minutes at Liverpool, saying, please come, Federico, why don't you come? And this is Gattuso, mind you. Zaccagni, as to what Matt mentioned, like what else does he have to do? I really don't understand it. I think he proved enough within the limited time that he got in those Euros that he can be productive. And they're not getting much else with the wingers. I think there's relatively talented, like Kane Retegui, that's a great duo. I don't really kind of want to mess that up with the way they're scoring, but when you do have to change things up and you maybe go to a 4-3-3, you need that versatility. Zaccagni can provide that. He's been consistent at club level. He's shown it at the national team. And hey, there's quite a lot of guys that have done well at club that don't do shit with the national team. Yeah. And it kind of is tiring. I think you're right. I think there is a narrative against Lazio when it comes to this situation that they're not world beaters. They're not really this team that plays the sexiest kind of style, but Zaccagni is productive. And if it's one thing I do, I protect wingers when it comes to production. Because as we mentioned in the 13th minute, what the hell is he supposed to do? His job is to provide a ball for a player inside the box to score. And if they don't score, that's not the winger's fault. That's the forward who's supposed to be there's fault. So that's where I kind of get very annoyed by the way we judge these players. And to what Matt mentioned, there's work rate. So where are we really looking on when we go down the list of checks and boxes that we need to sign off on here? Zaccagni, out of the two players, has the least amount. So I just find that kind of nauseating when we're seeing some of the other forwards that get called up within this national team that you're like, I don't think you have any business being here. And you're not even really that good at the club level. So I'm really wondering what we're thinking. But, Gattuso has big decisions to make. And I think Zaccagni should be there. Romagnoli, as much as I would love to see him there, I don't think we're going to.
And you think Zaccagni would be like a typical Gattuso personality that he would want?
I think Rino, I think he feels pressure. There's just enormous pressure.
Yeah.
And I know how he is. We all know how he is. But it's a third straight World Cup missed on the line. So his margin for error, I can't even imagine another manager feeling what he has to feel. Because unironically, this was the best. Well, not the best. I know that's a low bar, but this was one of the better qualifying groups that we've had outside of the 2 games against Norway, the awful game against Israel. But they did fine. They did their job outside of that. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I wish my guy Romagnoli was there. We're only a day apart in real life for birthdays. So I do wish him great success. And I think he's looked great at Lazio. So I'm happy he's back at the club that he loves anyways. So any final stuff? Do you want to sign off here?
No, appreciate it. Always good to chat. Always seems like every time our two clubs clash, it makes for high entertainment at the very least. So love what you guys do. Appreciate it. You can find us at Lazio World. We're on every possible platform. So check us out. Appreciate it. You guys crush it. And we'll see what happens midweek at Coppa Italia. Best of luck.
Yes, take care of my boy Cooper Flag, please. He's doing fantastic.
The one good thing happening.
I know, man. I feel you. Well, Sean McIntosh of Lazio World and CEO of Las Vegas Lights. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you in a bit, all right? Later. So, fellas, as we finish up things here, we have some bit of rumor news that I wanted to talk to Matt about. So, once again, thank you to Sean. Matt, this was kind of floated. Fabrizio Romano kind of mentioned it. I wanted to talk about it and get your thoughts at the end of this one. We now have 2 legendary center backs, arguably the 2 best center backs of the 2010s are in the conversation for it, with Thiago Silva and Sergio Ramos being linked to Milan. Listen, he wants to return to Europe, supposedly wants to go to the World Cup next year. I don't really see how that's viable for him. But returning to Europe, he's still mid to late 30s. Listen, he would be 5th choice option here. Behind De Winter, Pavlovic, Gabbia, Tomori. Leadership instilled, going to play at the club that his idol Paolo Maldini played at, coming back to go and play with Luka Modric. There's storylines, there's narratives with this. Apparently, under the comment section of my short that I posted on YouTube here, Moretto had said that Milan's not really an option for him. But even if we want to just play for fun here, what are your thoughts on the potential of Sergio Ramos joining Milan?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be totally on board with Ramos on a short-term deal, similar to what I saw with Thiago Silva. Obviously players that are on the tail end of their career, they don't have much left as far as football years are concerned, but they still have the intelligence, the understanding of the game, and what for what Milan are looking for potentially in their 5th choice center back. I think a guy like Silva and Ramos, those 2 players would fit the billing. I mean, Ramos is as accomplished as any in his trade over the years we've seen at Real Madrid, right? The captain, big goals in Champions League games, obviously a leader for Spain. And, you look at the pedigree he has. I mean, I think that where he maybe lacks as far as maybe the legs and the sharpness and quickness in his overall physical play is, again, the fact that Serie A is very favorable for players at this part of their career, where you can kind of read the game in a different manner. It's not as high octane. It's more like a chess match. It's very tactical, and I think a player like Sergio Ramos, as a 5th choice center back, would give Milan a little bit. Now, of course, there's obviously the money factor. There's also the fact that you're saying that Moretto says that Milan are potentially an option for him. So just speaking purely on hypothetical and fantasy here, right, I'd like to see Sergio there. I will say that if he was to arrive, it would feel a couple of years late because, as mentioned on your reel on IG, he was a big and admirer and fond admirer of Paolo Maldini, and the fact that Maldini was here and Ramos obviously was a loose track years ago. I know that was
hard to fight off PSG.
I know, yeah.
It's
one of those things where it's like you kind of like the timing of it, right? Same thing with like Modric and stuff. But yeah, just to kind of end it, I think Ramos. It looks like it's a long shot, but just because I think again, you would play a fifth choice center back. How much would he really play? With Milan only playing one competition, but profile wise, I think his veteran presence would be welcomed for sure.
Yeah, I think that would ultimately be the thing for me, is just the situation that he's in. What could he offer for the side? Yeah, man, like to me, it's just when you can get a leader like this in the locker room, and I just don't understand the reasoning against it, especially if the wages are fair enough. We've seen what Modric has been able to do impact-wise. I think we all agree, and we have repeated this many times, that just having someone of that ilk and experience at the center back position is sorely needed, because as much as I love Fikayo Tomori, he's the most experienced center back in your side. That necessarily isn't the greatest thing. But and you said in your great video today, like Fick has done great. He's reinvented himself. Allegri's getting the best out of him, but we're also like an injury away. If Odogu is going out on loan, who's been putting in pretty good shifts with the Futuro side, I think Milan need to get a little savvy here. Oh, and by the way, Sergio Ramos kit sales would go through the roof. I just think, I don't know, if you just sign a player like that, and I know timing, blah, blah, blah. Listen, you're going to be playing in multiple competitions next year too. So like for me, if he can get it done, if it makes sense, if Allegri's on board, if everyone else is on board, that having that guy in the dressing room, man, that's like one of the greatest winners to ever play the game. I don't think he's a Nesta, better than Nesta, all that, right? Because, that's really kind of where I think the negativity around Ramos comes from Milanisti, is that he always gets compared to our best center backs. And I just quite don't think he was of that level. But how can you deny it, man? Some of the biggest goals in Real Madrid's history, World Cup winner, multiple Euro winner, like everything that you could have won in football, Sergio Ramos has done that. And he's still a great leader. And he's always in pretty good shape. I know he's had injuries.
Great shape.
Like, listen, man, I'm all for it. And I know I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff, but it's the situation and what he could bring to the table. And I think
Milan they're 13 games into the season, guys. So, we talk about how good Milan have been defensively. They've given up, 9 goals through 13 games.
Correct.
And we've highlighted how good Pavlovic and Gabbia and Tomori have looked this year. And that's all fine and well. But to your point, right, there's an injury. There's the turbulence of a long season, right? Who's to say, come January, February, one of those guys doesn't pick up a knock and he's out for a couple of weeks, and you have a stretch of games where you need a veteran leader to kind of stabilize, the defense and steady the ship a bit, and for that reason, I think that Milan, maybe they won't have this expensive January market, but as we mentioned in our previous episode with Nick Diani, talking about the market and needs to sustain the Scudetto push, I think that Milan can't rest on their laurels and go into this phase of the season thinking, well, we're good as we are. Look 13 games in, we've given up 9 goals, we're fine. And you get a little cute and you drop a couple points, and now all of a sudden you're on the outside looking at a Scudetto, and you kind of wonder what if we just did a little bit more reinforcing in January.
And by the way, speaking of January, and this has to do with the transfer market, Samuel Chukwueze playing pretty well for Fulham recently. I think that's important to note. If he plays very well for them, there could be an option for that trigger there that would greatly help Milan within the transfer market. We'll see what ends up happening with the striker position. I still think Santiago Jimenez will have the month to prove himself. And I think if he does relatively well in terms of production, and there's not like the greatest player that they can go out and nab, because I think Moise Kean at the end of the day would probably be the best fit for Milan. But ultimately, that is not going to happen in January, especially with Fiorentina. I don't think they'll get relegated. But if they were to have gotten relegated, I see Milan making that move for him. But with that, we appreciate all the support Shout out to Stinker once again for giving us the great thumbnails. Thank you to Sean McIntosh for joining us once again. Great stuff by him. So go and check out Lazio World. Again, as Santangelo yawns here at the end of the day, go and follow him everywhere at Matt_Santangelo on Twitter, at AC Milan Bros on Twitter as well, at Matt_Santa22. You just saw him. It was a wonderful surprise to get a notification that I saw he created a video today.
I'm trying to get better with Instagram videos. I'm trying to
there's
energy.
progress.
I know Martino mentioned energy, and I'm like, I'm so used to the podcast
You're
format.
answering you and my guy Miguel AJ. I'm always just like, love the video, guys, but bro, it sounds like you're about to fall asleep.
I need some more snappy energy.
Hey, I'm used to it. This is what they would like tell me in school all the time. It's just one of those things that you don't realize. That's all. But honestly, great content again. So go and check that out. The YouTube short is up on there. Instagram and TikTok. TikTok is doing pretty well. Didn't get a chance to tell you. So good job over there. Again, 5 stars everywhere for the podcast, guys. Greatly appreciated. YouTube over here. Follow me at Martino_Puccio. I had a nice Luis Suarez video that I got very annoyed at by one of the statements by him. So again, we appreciate all the support. It's a lot of fun doing this stuff. We're ending on the final month of the year. Would love to hit 7,000 subscribers on the channel. If we could make that happen, that would be fantastic. If not, the support's all great at the same time. It's just really been a lot of fun for us. And we only think this is the beginning. There's a lot more coming forward with us. Shout out to Kush once again. Him and Pavlovic dapping it up, by the way, at San Siro. Did you see that video on Kush's story?
I
Kush
did,
is like,
I did.
Pavlovic is happy to see Kush. Do you guys understand that?
He's like, I've seen you a lot here. Like you're saying, like you're gonna be here. So it's
which I haven't asked Kush about. But again, always check out his stuff. Kush has been venturing into some other content as well. Kush is again, I know we're saying we're just on the ground floor. Watch the evolution of Kush.
Yeah, Kush is you can see that kind of like buy in now, buy the stonks now on Kush because
what was that guy buy Bitcoin like that 2009 video or something?
Yeah.
Listen, Kush has always been good to us, and we like to think that we've been good to him too. Like just a genuine stand-up guy who deserves all the success in the world. We've even seen some of the channels that were anti-Kush finally coming around and being decent people towards him. So I'm happy to see that. But yeah, everyone else, Fabio's going crazy on social media. We've seen a Presidente appearance on the Calcio Guys podcast as well. I'm not sure if you caught clips of that. Everybody's thriving here except for Juventus, 7th place. Other than that, guys, take care.